learners, very good morning. This is Ishan Dubey, former teaching assistant at Department of Aviation, Fighter Wings Aviation College, Chennai, Tamil Nadu. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks and gratitude to Team 2020 that they have given me this great opportunity to express and share my knowledge with you. With this, I would like to say that I am going to take the lectures for basics of strength of material and aircraft structures for GATE Aerospace 2021. This is our first lecture on basics of strength of material. So let me not waste your much more time. Let's start. So dear learners, in our today's lecture, we will be going through the very basics and fundamental concepts of strength of material. So let us have look at what are the topics which we are going to cover in our today's lecture. So topics are, first topic, like we'll be going through the some basic terms like stress and strain, then types of deformation, stress and strain curve, Hooke's law, elongation of bar and rod, Poisson's ratio, thermal stresses and thermal strain, calculation of volumetric strain, strain energy, proof resilience and impact load, principal stresses and principal strain, plane stress and plane strain, shear force and bending moment diagram, bending stress in beams, shear stress in beams, thin cylinder and spheres, torsion in shafts, theory of columns, deflection in beams, and the last topic will be which we are going to discuss, that is Morse circle. So these are the some topics which we are going to cover in our today's lecture. So we will be going to just give the overview of all of these basic fundamentals. Okay, so let's start. Dear learners, before going into the topics, let me ask one question, that why to study this subject, that is strength of material? Do you know? Do you have answer for that? So let's think on that. So let me answer for that. So actually, strength of material is the fundamental subject for the analysis of any kind of structure, like machine drawing in mechanical engineering, bridges and building structures in civil engineering, and like aerospace structures. We can say that it is a part of designing. So now, what is the actual meaning of strength of material? So where strength means capacity of anything, that is called strength. Okay, now in strength of material we talk about strength of different materials. But why? As we all know that mechanical engineer designs machines and automobiles, civil engineer designs bridges and structures, building structures, aerospace engineers, they will be designing aircraft structures, right? So here we should know that the material which we are using, when it will break or when it will fail, so we must know that its material strength. If we don't know what is the load carrying capacity of material, we can't design a perfect structure, perfect machine. As well, if we don't know what is the material strength, we can't predict the lifespan of structure. Thus, strength of material tells us that any structure, how it will fail, when it will fail, and what is the load carrying capacity it have. So now let me give one more example, that in our daily life how we describe strength. Like in a bench 6 person can sit, more than that can't. Another example, in a lift at a time 8 to 10 persons can be, right? So but when we comes to engineering level, that is what I given the example, that is for what general our daily life we define strength in that way. But when we come to engineering level, we describe strength in terms of stress. Okay, and that is what our first topic. So strength is related to stress, right? Now the question is, what is stress? So it is nothing but internal resistance experienced by the body or object per unit area when an external force applied on the object. Okay, so this is what stress. Now second term in this subject is strain. So now second question is, what is strain? So strain is nothing but it is an approach to measure the deformation happened in a body due to external load. Means whatever the external load we are applying on the body, because of there is a some kind of deformation will happen, that body will deform. So strain is one of the approach through which we can find out the deformation, where strain is defined as change in dimension to the original dimension. Thus, to find deformation in an object, we should have to know about these two things. First one is original dimension of the object, and second one is size and shape of the object. So in any design like machine or structure, our main motto or our main focus is to find out the different stresses which is generated into the material. So now let me give the brief intro about strength. So what is strength? So strength is nothing but it is a maximum value of stress which a material can sustain. Thus, if the material get more stress than the strength of its own, material will get fail. Therefore, we will see stress in two ways: induced stress, that is stress generated corresponding to applied load, and the another one is maximum permissible stress, that is how much load or stress can be applied. Now if in case induced stress greater than the maximum permissible stress, then material caused to be a failure. Now what is the meaning of failure? So there are two meanings of failure. So first one, you can say when the criteria of material not fulfilled, which is decided by the designer, material caused to be failure, that is called permanent deformation, or you can say plastic deformation. And another one is a permanent rupture, or you can say permanent fracture. So now for the failure, main important term is load, where load is nothing but kind of force, and we can divide force into many types like mechanical force, electromagnetic force, gravity force. Okay, so this mechanical force is the physical contact force, okay, and electromagnetic force and gravity force is non-physical contact force. For this these two forces like electromotive force and gravity force, physical contact is not needed, but for mechanical force physical contact is needed, that is direct physical contact. So our load is the mechanical force in which you need physical contact. So I hope that you get clearance about what is actually load. So strength of material is branch of mechanics, and mechanics is nothing but it is a branch of science where we study about force, energy and their effects. And mechanics can be divided into three categories. First one is engineering mechanics, where we study forces, energy and their effects on rigid body. Another one is strength of material, where we study of force, energy and their effects on deformable bodies. And the last one, there is the fluid mechanics, where we study of force, energy and their effects on fluid. Okay, so what is rigid body? So rigid body is which cannot be deformed, thus it is hypothetical body. Okay, and another one is deformable body. So deformable body we can categorize into two types of material: elastic material and plastic material. So elastic material will be having temporary deformation and plastic material will be having permanent deformation. Okay, so this is what the reason strength of material plays a vital role in mechanics. Okay, so that is what one of the reason we should have to study this subject. So let us now start with some basic terms, which is our first topic. So as we have already discussed, one of the basic terms are stress and strain. So what is stress? As we have already discussed, stress is the internal resisting force developed in the body due to externally applied load, and which is given by the formula load by area. And if this applied load causes deformation in the body, the deformation per unit length known as strain. So this strain can be classified into two types. You can say axial strain and shear strain. So axial strain can be given by delta L by L, and shear strain can be given by delta S by L. Now when the load is applied on the body, it will not only causes longitudinal deformation, it also causes lateral deformation. As a result of this, the cross section area of the component reduces, which results in change in stress. So this stress is known as true stress, or you can say instantaneous stress. And formula for the true stress is given by sigma naught multiplied with final length to the initial length. Okay, and this can be also written as nominal stress into 1 plus nominal strain. Now coming to the true strain or nominal strain. So the formula is given by ln of final length to the initial length, or you can say ln of 1 plus nominal strain. Now let us discuss about stress strain curve. So when a ductile specimen is subjected to tensile load, stress is directly proportional to the strain till the elastic limit. This is also known as Hooke's law, and the constant of proportionality is known as Young's modulus. It represents the slope of this curve before the elastic limit. On loading further, the deformation produced in it is permanent deformation, and this behavior is known as strain hardening, or you can say work hardening. Strain hardening happens till the ultimate point. After this, on further loading, the cross-sectional area of specimen rapidly decreases, and this phenomena is known as necking. And finally, it reaches a point where it gets fracture in cup and cone shape. Now let us move on to the Hooke's law. That is what our next topic. So what is Hooke's law? So as we have discussed, Hooke's law states that within elastic limit, stress is directly proportional to strain, and the constant of proportionality is known as Young's modulus. This can also be applied to shear stress as well as change in pressure, as shear stress is directly proportional to shear strain, and the constant of proportionality is known as modulus of rigidity, and the change in pressure is directly proportional to the volumetric strain, and the constant of proportionality is known as bulk modulus. So now let us look at formula for the elongation for some standard cases. So that is what was the Hooke's law. Means within elastic limit, stress is directly proportional to the strain. So now we will be moving for our next topic, that is elongation for some standard cases. So basically we have 6 cases for elongation. So first case for prismatic bar, second one is tapered circular rod, third one is a tapered rectangular bar, fourth one is a variable E bar, that is also called as composite bar, and fifth one is a due to self weight, that is prismatic bar, and elongation of conical bar due to self weight. So elongation for prismatic bar is given by P into L by AE, where P is the load, L is the length of the bar, A is the cross section area, and E is the Young's modulus of the bar material. Second one is the tapered circular rod. So the formula for the elongation of tapered circular rod is given by PL divided by pi by 4 d1 d2 E, where P is the again load, L is the length of the bar, and pi by 4 d1 d2 is the cross sectional area, and E is the Young modulus of the bar material. Third one is the tapered rectangular bar. So in tapered rectangular bar, we will be having different length at the different end. Okay, so which is given by PL by E into small t within bracket a minus b log a to the b. So where a is the length of the one end which is a larger length, and b is the another length of the end which is a smaller one, and small t is the thickness of the bar, p is the load, and l is the length of the bar, and E is the Young's modulus. So fourth one, there is a variable E bar, and that is also called as composite bar, for which the formula is given by PL divided by A within bracket E2 minus E1 ln E2 by E1, where E2 E1 is the, like as this is composite bar, so this bar will consist of multiple materials, so it will be having multiple Young's modulus. So E2 is the Young modulus for second material, and E1 is the Young modulus for the first material, and P is the load, L is the length of the bar, and A is the cross sectional area. Okay, so that is what the elongation for the variable E bar. So next one, that is elongation due to self weight for prismatic bar, which is given by the formula weight density L square divided by twice Young's modulus. And sixth one, there is the last, elongation of conical bar due to self weight, which is given by again weight density into L square divided by 6 Young's modulus. So this is what. So now coming to the Poisson's ratio, that is what our next topic. So what is Poisson's ratio? So Poisson's ratio is nothing but it is defined as ratio of lateral strain to the longitudinal strain, and formula for Poisson's ratio is given by mu is equals to del D by D entire divided by del L by L, where D is the lateral dimension of the bar, and this Poisson's ratio is denoted by mu. So now coming to relationship between elastic constants, that is E, capital G and capital K, where E is the Young's modulus, G is the modulus of rigidity, and K is the bulk modulus. So the relation between Young's modulus and modulus of rigidity is given by E is equals to twice G 1 plus mu. Second one is a relation between Young modulus and bulk modulus, that is E is equals to thrice K within bracket 1 minus twice mu. And the third one, there is a relation between all the three. So if we solve first and second equation, we will get the third equation, that is Young's modulus equals to 9 times of modulus of rigidity and bulk modulus divided by 3K plus G. Okay, so now what do you mean by thermal stresses? Okay, so do you know what do you mean by thermal stresses? So thermal stress is nothing but it is the stress which is generated into the material due to the change in temperature. So the stress which is generated due to the change in temperature into the material called as thermal stresses or thermal stress. Okay, so now if alpha is the coefficient of thermal expansion, then the stress produced due to change in temperature is given by sigma suffix t is equals to E alpha delta T. Okay, where alpha is the coefficient of thermal expansion. Similarly, thermal strain is given by epsilon T is equals to alpha delta T, where alpha is the coefficient of thermal expansion and delta T is the change in temperature. And the thermal load produced given by P subscript T is equals to EA alpha delta T, where E is the Young's modulus of material, A is the cross sectional area of the material, alpha is the coefficient of thermal expansion, and delta T is the change in temperature inside the material. Now coming to different materials and independent elastic constants required from them. So we have basically three types of material: isotropic material, orthotropic material, and anisotropic material. For isotropic material, we have two independent elastic constants. For orthotropic material, we have 9 independent elastic constants, and for anisotropic materials, we have 21 independent elastic constants. So now coming to calculation of volumetric strain. So for this, strain is calculated in three individual direction and added to get volumetric strain. So x direction volumetric strain is given by epsilon x is equals to sigma x by E minus mu sigma y by E minus mu sigma z by E. Similarly for y direction, epsilon y is equals to sigma y by E minus mu sigma x by E minus mu sigma z by E. Similarly for z direction, epsilon z is equals to sigma z by E minus mu sigma x by E minus mu sigma z by E. On adding all the three direction volumetric strain, we will get epsilon v is equals to epsilon x plus epsilon y plus epsilon z. And on substituting the values of epsilon x, epsilon y and epsilon z, we will get sigma x plus sigma y plus sigma z divided by Young's modulus within bracket 1 minus twice mu. So that is what the value of volumetric strain. So now let's calculate strain energy stored in a body. So strain energy is nothing but ability to absorb energy, and it is given by half p delta, or you can say is equals to half t theta. For torsional load, we will say strain energy is half t theta, where theta is the angular deformation. So in this we have two more terms. One is proof resilience and another one is impact load. So what is proof resilience? So proof resilience is nothing but it is the maximum strain energy that can be stored in the body, and it is represented by capital U, that is what strain energy, and that is equals to sigma square by twice E into volume, where E is the Young's modulus of the material and V is the volume and sigma is the stress. Okay, and second one is the impact load, right? So what is impact load? It is also called as sudden load, okay, and which is given by the formula P by A within bracket 1 plus square root of 1 plus 2h by delta, where delta is the deflection and A is the cross section area and P is the load. So now let us move for the next topic, that is principal stresses and principal strain. So before moving to the principal stresses and principal strain topic, we should have some basic idea about what is plane stress and what is plane strain. So for a body under complex stresses, the normal stress at any plane is given by sigma n is equals to sigma x plus sigma y by 2 plus sigma x minus sigma y by 2 cos 2 theta plus tau xy sin 2 theta. Similarly, shear stress acting on the plane is given by tau n is equals to minus sigma x minus sigma y by 2 sin 2 theta plus tau xy cos 2 theta. Now for different cases such as uniaxial stress. Uniaxial stress means stresses are acting in the same direction, means in the axial direction, and another is biaxial means in the two direction, means x and y, and pure shear means in the case of pure shear we will be having sigma x and sigma y equals to 0. For biaxial stress case we have tau xy is equals to 0, and for uniaxial case we can substitute sigma y equals to 0 and tau xy equals to 0, means stress is acting only in one direction. Biaxial means two direction, and pure shear means there is no what sigma x and sigma y direction stresses. Okay, so as we have seen the formula for plane stresses, similarly we can get formula for the plane strains. So by replacing in the formulas of plane stresses, that is what sigma x, if we replace by epsilon x, and if we replace sigma y with epsilon y, and if we replace tau xy with gamma xy by 2, we will get the formula for axial strain and shear strain. So this is what plane stress and plane strain. Now coming to principal stresses. So there are the maximum and minimum stresses acting on the body. So maximum principal stress is given by sigma 1 is equals to sigma x plus sigma y by 2 plus under root of sigma x minus sigma y by 2 whole square plus tau xy whole square. And minimum principal stress is given by sigma 2, that is equals to sigma x plus sigma y by 2 minus under root of sigma x minus sigma y by 2 whole square plus tau xy square. Similarly, maximum shear stress is given by tau max, that is equals to sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2. And the plane in which these principal stresses x given by tan 2 theta p is equals to tau xy by sigma x minus sigma y by 2, that can be written as tau xy by tau max. So this is what principal stresses formulas. Next, like we have find out formulas for principal stresses by using plane stresses formula. Similarly, we can find out formula for the principal strain by using plane strain formula. Just replace sigma x with epsilon x, sigma y with epsilon y, and tau xy with gamma xy. Then finally you will get the formula for the principal strain and also for the plane angle by doing this. So epsilon 1 is equals to epsilon x plus epsilon y by 2 plus within square root epsilon x minus epsilon y divided by 2 whole square plus gamma xy by 2 whole square. Move for our next topic, that is shear force and bending moment. So what is shear force? So shear force is nothing but it is the algebraic sum of the vertical forces at any section of a beam to the right or left of the section is known as shear force, and which is briefly written as capital SF. On the other hand, the algebraic sum of the moments of all the forces acting to the right or left of the section is known as bending moment, and which is written as capital BM. Okay, so we will be going to consider different cases for shear force and bending moment diagram. So our first case, in which we have cantilever beam with point load. So in this case, shear force remains constant with the value of capital W, and bending moment varies linearly with the value of minus capital WL. In the second case, we have cantilever beam with uniform load. In this case, shear force varies linearly with the maximum value of omega L, where omega is the load per unit length, and bending moment varies parabolically with the maximum value of minus omega L square by 2, where again omega is the load per unit length. So our third case, in which we have simply supported beam with point load acting at the center. So in this case, shear force varies from W by 2 to minus W by 2, and the bending moment varies linearly with the maximum value of plus WL by 4. Our fourth case, in which we have simply supported beam with uniform load. So in this case, shear force varies linearly from plus WL by 2 to minus WL by 2, and bending moment varies parabolically with the maximum value of plus WL square by 8. So our first case, so our fifth case, that is the last one, in which we have simply supported beam with point load at random place on the simply supported beam. So for this case, reaction on the left side of the point load is given by WB by L, and the reaction on the right side of the point load is given by WA by L, and bending moment varies linearly with maximum value of WAB by L at the location where the point load is applied. So this is what all about shear force and bending moment. So now let us look at the relationship between load, shear stress and bending moment. So the relationship between load and shear stress is given by dV by dx, that is equals to minus W. Our next relationship, that is relationship between shear stress and bending moment, is given by dm by dx, that is equals to V, and where V is the shear stress. Now there is also one term called as point of contraflexure. So what is point of contraflexure? It is the point where bending moment becomes zero and changes its sign. So now let us move on to the another topic, that is bending stresses in beams. So for this we have only one major formula, that is capital M by capital I is equals to sigma by y is equals to capital E by capital R, where M is the bending moment, I is the moment of inertia about neutral axis, sigma is the bending stress, y is the distance of fiber from the neutral axis, and r is the radius of curvature, and E is the Young's modulus of the beam. And we have another term, that is section modulus, denoted by small z. It is the ratio of moment of inertia of a section about the neutral axis to the distance of the outermost layer from the neutral axis, and which is given by capital I by y, where I is the moment of inertia. Now for rectangular x section, section modulus is given by bh square by 6, and for circular x section, section modulus is given by pi d cube by 32. So this is what section modulus. So our next topic is shear stresses in beams. So shear stresses in beam given by the formula tau is equals to V capital Q by IB, where Q is nothing but a y bar, that is equals to integral of y from y max y dA. And also remember one thing, that for any section the shear stress varies parabolically. And another important point, that is for rectangular section the maximum shear stress occurs at the center, which is equals to 3 by 2 tau average, that is tau max. Similarly for circular section, maximum shear stress occurs at the center, which is equals to 4 by 3 tau average, that is tau max. So this is what shear stresses in beams. Now coming to the thin cylinders and thin spheres. So what is thin cylinder and thin spheres? So if the thickness of the wall of the cylinder or spherical vessel is less than 1 by 15 to 1 by 20 of its internal diameter, then that cylinder or sphere is called as thin cylinder or thin sphere. Now when the cylindrical or spherical vessel subjected to internal pressure, walls of the vessel set up to be two kinds of stresses. Those two kinds of stresses are, first one is circumferential stress, which is also called as hoop stress, which is given by sigma c is equals to pd by twice t, where p is the internal fluid pressure, d is the internal diameter of the cylinder, and t is the thickness of the wall of the cylinder. And the another stress is longitudinal stress, which is given by sigma L is equals to pd by 4t, where again p is the internal fluid pressure, d is the internal diameter of the cylinder, and t is the thickness of the wall of the cylinder or sphere. Okay, so now by using above two stresses equation, we can find out strain in the cylinder, that is circumferential strain, longitudinal strain, and volumetric strain. So circumferential strain is given by epsilon c is equals to pd by twice t e within bracket 1 minus mu by 2. Similarly longitudinal strain is given by epsilon L is equals to pd by twice te within bracket 1 by 2 minus mu. Similarly volumetric strain is given by epsilon v is equals to pd by twice te within bracket 5 by 2 minus twice mu, where p is the internal fluid pressure, d is the internal diameter of the cylinder, t is the thickness of the wall of the cylinder, and e is the Young's modulus of the cylinder material. So now coming for the thin spheres, still we was talking about thin cylinders, now we are going to talk about thin spheres. So similarly thin spheres also having two kinds of stress, that is circumferential stress and longitudinal stress. So circumferential stress is given by sigma c equals to pd by 40, and longitudinal stress is given by pd by 40. So for thin sphere, circumferential stress and longitudinal stress is same. Similarly we can calculate the circumferential strain, longitudinal strain, and volumetric strain. So where circumferential strain is given by pd by 4 te within bracket 1 minus mu, longitudinal strain is given by epsilon L is equals to pd by 4 te within bracket 1 minus mu, and the volumetric strain is given by
epsilon v is equals to 3 pd by 4 te within bracket 1 minus mu. So this is what all about thin cylinder and thin spheres. So now our next topic is torsion in shafts. So a shaft is said to be in torsion when equal and opposite torques are applied at the two ends of the shaft. So this having a major formula which is given by capital T by tau is equals to tau by r. So this having a major formula given by capital T by J is equals to tau by r is equals to g theta by L, that is capital L. So where capital T is the torque transmitted, J is the polar moment of inertia, tau is the maximum shear stress, r is the radius of curvature, and g it is also represented by capital C, and which is called as modulus of rigidity, theta is the angle of twist, and L is the length of the shaft. Now we have one term, that is torsional stiffness, which is given by T by theta, or you can say Gj by capital L, and which is represented by capital K subscript T, Kt. Okay. We have to remember some points to solving the questions, like for shaft in series and for shaft in parallel. So if shaft is in series, then T is equals to T1 equals to T2, and theta equals to theta 1 equals to theta 2. And if the shaft is in parallel, in that situation torque will be equals to T1 plus T2, and theta will be equals to theta 1 equals to theta 2, where theta is the angle of twist. And if we need to calculate strain energy, we have to use formula capital U is equals to T square capital L divided by 2 Gj, where G is the modulus of rigidity, J is the polar moment of inertia, capital is the length, and T is the torque transmitted. So our next topic, that is theory of columns. So now in our mind question will come that what is column? So column, which is also called as strut, is defined as a member of a structure which is subjected to axial compressive load, and if the member of the structure is vertical and both of its ends are fixed rigidly while subjected to axial pressure load, member is known as column. Now in case of column we have two terms, crippling load, that is also called as crushing load, and another term is crippling stress. So crippling load is given by pi square capital EI by L square effective, and where crippling load is denoted by P subscript Cr, and crippling stress, that is given by pi square capital E divided by Le by kg whole square, where Le by kg is nothing but slenderness ratio, and crippling stress is denoted by sigma subscript Cr. Now let us see effective length for different columns. So our first case is column with both and hinged. In that case effective length will be equals to the capital L. In second case, that is column with one end hinged and another end is fixed. So in that case effective length will be equals to L by capital L by root 2. Third case, that is column with both ends are fixed. So in that case effective length will be equals to capital L by 2. Our fourth case, in that case that is column with one end is fixed and another end is free. So for that effective length will be equals to twice of capital L. So our next topic, that is deflection in beams. So we have many methods to find out the deflection of beams, but we will discuss only three. So first one is double integration method, second one is moment area method, and third one is the Castigliano theorem. So in the double integration method we have the formula capital EI d2y by dx2 is equals to mx, where dy by dx is equals to theta and y is equals to small d, where we put the expression of bending moment for particular condition in place of mx and integrate for the first time to get the slope and for the second time to get the deflection. In our next method, that is moment area method, to find out the slope, we find out area of m by EI diagram between A to B. And for calculating deflection, we take the first moment of that area, that is AX bar of m by EI diagram between A to B. In our third method, that is Castigliano theorem, we calculate the expression of strain energy stored in the beam and partial differentiate to get the deflection. So this is what three methods are. Okay, now let us see slope and deflection for different condition. For cantilever beam with point load, slope is equals to PL square by twice EI and the deflection is equals to PL cube by 3 EI. For cantilever beam with uniform load, slope equals to capital WL square by 6 EI and the deflection is capital WL to the power 4 by 8 EI. Similarly, for simply supported beam with point load, slope value is equals to PL square by 16 EI and the deflection value is given by Y is equals to PL cube by 48 EI. For simply supported beam with uniform distributed load, slope value is given by omega L cube divided by 24 EI and the deflection value is given by 5 by 384 omega L to the power 4 by EI. And these all the values are acting at the center of the beam. So this is what some of the special case for the slope and deflection for different condition. So now our next topic, that is the last topic of this lecture, that is the Morse circle. So what is Morse circle? So Morse circle is nothing but it is a graphical representation, or you can say graphical method of finding normal, tangential and resultant stresses on an oblique plane. And Morse circle will be drawn for the following cases. So first case is a body subjected to two mutually perpendicular principal tensile stresses of unequal intensities. And second case is a body subjected to two mutually perpendicular principal stresses which are unequal and unlike. That is, one is tensile and another is compressive. Third case, that is a body subjected to two mutually perpendicular principal tensile stresses accompanied by a simple shear stresses. So in first case, sigma 1 is the major tensile stress, sigma 2 is the minor tensile stress and theta is the angle made by the oblique plane. In second case, sigma 1 will be the major tensile stress but sigma 2 will be the minor compressive stress and theta will be the same, that is angle made by the oblique plane. And for the third case, sigma 1 and sigma 2 will be the, that is sigma 1 is the major tensile stress and sigma 2 will be the minor tensile stress and theta will be the angle made by the oblique plane. This is what all for today's lecture. I have tried to cover all the basic fundamentals of strength of material. I wish that you have understood all the concepts and topics very well. Further, if you are getting any query, any doubt, you can reach to us. So finally we are at the end of our lecture. So at the end, once again I would like to express my sincere thanks, my gratitude to Team 2020 that they have given me this great opportunity to express my knowledge with you. Thank you so much.